Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 Origin Continent based on novel. So let's start. Previously, while exploring the fluctuation land with Lord Mo-Man, Luo Feng had perceived the endless primordial space from the perspective of fluctuations. At this moment, perceiving the endless primordial space from the perspective of the abyss of destruction brought about a new change. The abyss of destruction, land of eternity, and fire prison wall are the three major pillars of the endless primordial space. Missing any of these pillars is not acceptable. The abyss of destruction and the fire prison wall, no opposition whatsoever, but instead perfect collaboration. Luo Feng felt. The fire prison wall is like an infinite energy radiation spreading across the endless primordial space, allowing countless creatures to grow, giving birth to various resources. The land of eternity, like a stabilizing needle in the ocean, stabilizes the entire endless primordial space. The abyss of destruction swallows all that is harmful to the endless primordial space. It's like a garbage cleanup. The three of them all aim for the endless primordial space to continue its eternal existence. I can sense that the duty of the abyss of destruction, besides devouring the most intense negative spiritual power, is crucially, destruction. Luo Feng could vaguely sense the abyss of destruction was always accumulating power, when the burden of the number of creatures affects the stability of the endless primordial space. The abyss of destruction might erupt with accumulated power over endless ages, forming a great catastrophe, affecting the entire endless primordial space. By then, 9/10 of the innate primordial life might die, ancestors not at the undying and undying level might perish in large numbers too. Even if the source world is resilient enough, it might still suffer extensive destruction. Luo Feng could vaguely sense. This is a kind of self-cleansing for the endless primordial space. Of course, it only happens when the burden is extremely great. Since the birth of the endless primordial space, no destruction eruption has ever occurred. Once a master of the abyss of destruction appears, they can refine the cleansing of the endless primordial space. Luo Feng understood this. The one-time eruption of the abyss of destruction's accumulated power is too terrifying, indifferent to friend or foe, wantonly destructive. Once there is an owner as the master, while departing the abyss of destruction, they can only borrow part of the power, and the destructive force is much weaker. If they do not wish to see indiscriminate mass destruction, the master will naturally cleanse the endless primordial space periodically. To erupt the accumulated power of the abyss of destruction in one go, is also a great depletion of energy for the abyss of destruction. So having a master actively cleanse is greatly beneficial for both the abyss of destruction and the endless primordial space. Because being the master of the abyss of destruction is very challenging, there are multiple candidates, and I am one of them. Luo Feng realized, the abyss of destruction divides its powers into 7 parts, allowing for up to 7 candidates. Candidates can also periodically cleanse the endless primordial space. As for those who are weaker, the abyss of destruction holds them in disdain. Such strength is not qualified to periodically cleanse the endless primordial space. As a candidate, I also face challenges. He controlled the 34th layer of the destruction world, but other ancestors or lords could descend layer by layer if they are strong enough. If defeated in the 34th layer, they could also seize control from him and the world envoy, thereby taking the authority to master the destruction world. The one who occupies first has advantages, defeating me and the world envoy. Luo Feng smiled. Luo Feng could only evade the obstruction by the world envoy after he obtained weapons. After mastering the destruction world, Luo Feng had overall superiority over the world envoy. The latecomer must face not only the world envoy, but also the cooperative efforts of Luo Feng as the master of the destruction world, making the difficulty significantly higher. Unfortunately, I cannot expel some hostile ancestors within the destruction world. Luo Feng pondered. Even though he mastered the destruction world, he only left a mark on the shadow of origin in the 34th layer of the destruction world. And the shadow of origin is just a strand of power from the core of the abyss of destruction. His authority is granted by the abyss of destruction. Only when the core of the abyss of destruction is fully refined one day can he be considered the master of the abyss of destruction. After me, those closest in power are at the 26th and 27th layers in the abyss of destruction, quite a far gap from me. Luo Feng didn't feel too much pressure. Indeed, after understanding the secrets of the abyss of destruction, Luo Feng also decided not to give any more destruction fruits to Shoju, even if obtained in the future. Shoju's power evolved significantly after obtaining 2 destruction fruits. If he gifted her one, what if it caused a qualitative change in her life course evolution? Actively cultivating an opponent is not something one should do. Besides, are Shoju's promises necessarily believable? What would one do if she broke her promises? Ancestors have broken promises and flipped faces more than once or twice. In the past, Yuan and Shoju, the Ice Mountain ancestor, had such a good relationship, but later the Ice Peak camp also took advantage of the innate primordial camp warring against the Cultivator camp, seizing over 100 world groups from the Cultivator camp. When Mujiyu ancestor, the 3 kings of the Wind and Thunder Sea, engaged in plundering and slaughter, didn't the Ice Mountain ancestor silently approve? Even to reclaim territory, 8 lords had to issue threats of war stance before the Ice Mountain ancestor eventually returned it. All promises and friendships can become jokes in the face of time or camp interests. Rely on mountains and they collapse, rely on people and they run. The most trustworthy remains one's own strength. Luo Feng murmured. At the deepest layer of the abyss of destruction, on this land formed by the condensation of endless resentment and hatred, a cave mansion appeared, within which Luo Feng had an avatar residing long-term. Perpetually perceiving the fluctuating power of the abyss of destruction. The future holds countless possibilities, branching into numerous timelines. Some of these timelines will collapse, while others will persist. The Starlight Lord has numerous avatars, traversing various timelines, observing the myriad possibilities of the future. When a world on a future timeline suddenly collapses, it signifies the complete disappearance of that possibility. What's happening? This. Numerous avatars of the Starlight Lord, while observing the future, suddenly discovered something shocking. Why can I no longer see Luo Feng in any of the future timelines? The Starlight Lord realized this point. In all future timelines, Lord Luo Feng was greatly influential, often cited. Previously, only the Hermit was hard for me to observe. Now, there's another one, Luo Feng. The Starlight Lord speculated, there must be some special power concealing his trace. The true form of the Hermit was completely concealed. Luo Feng was also hidden from view. Luo Feng has been staying in the depths of the abyss of destruction lately. Could he have mastered some sort of power from it? Starlight Lord speculated. As the highest tier of mysterious lands, the slightest interference from the abyss of destruction was enough to make it difficult for the Starlight Lord to observe. Whatever the reason, he must have grown stronger. The Starlight Lord smiled. Before long, Luo Feng left some intelligence in the land of origin. More detailed information about the abyss of destruction. ssnoveltimesfire.net. Yuan, Jin, Wulan, Ming Huang, Nai Jiyu, Starlight, and Mo Man all saw this information. The abyss of destruction requires passing 7 layers of tests to control it, which is extremely difficult. The abyss of destruction is divided into 7 powers. The surface true world, destruction world, contains 1 power, which is currently under my control. The inner spirit world, sea of destruction, contains 2 powers. The core mountain of destruction has 3 powers. Upon passing the 6th layer of tests, one can also obtain a power. The latter 6 powers are currently unclaimed, with unknown thresholds. Luo Feng shared the information he explored with other lords, hoping that if there should be another chosen one, it would be another lord. This intelligence shocked the 7 lords somewhat. The 8 lords thus gathered in the land of origin. Gaining control of the surface destruction world is relatively the easiest, but one still has to cut through 34 layers of the destruction world. Jin shook his head lightly. I've only occupied the 13th layer now. Obviously, just having a single primordial level Dao isn't enough to impress the abyss of destruction. Though I have mastered 2 primordial level Daos of life and death, grasping control of the abyss of destruction remains distant. Luo Feng smiled. Being able to wield 1 power is already very fortunate. There is still the advantage of being the first occupier. Later comers, even with equal strength. It is difficult to control a single power. After all, it is the highest tier of mysterious lands, said Starlight. After Luo Feng took control of the destruction world, his power increased significantly. I think our previous territorial expansion plan was too conservative. Nai Jiyu said with a smile. Let's wait for Yuan to break through first. Ming Huang said, then we'll discuss it. Luo Feng nodded as well. Yuan's breakthrough will noticeably enhance the overall strength of the cultivator camp. If Yuan's primordial rule operation path undergoes further transformation, it can harmonize the strength of the 8 lords even better. The overall combat strength will increase significantly. By then, my plan can also proceed more smoothly. Just waiting for Brother Yuan to break through, Luo Feng laughed. Soon, soon. Yuan laughed boisterously. In the blink of an eye, more than 200,000 epochs passed, and Yuan was still cultivating in seclusion. For Yuan, over 200,000 epochs is a very short cultivation time. For Luo Feng, from cultivating as an eternal true god to becoming the foremost in the endless primordial space, the time spent is less than 20,000 epochs. Luo Feng's homeland, the Source World. The land of origin is now incredibly vast, with a total of 360,000 primal chaos prefecture of varying sizes. The lifespan of a true god is only 30,000 epochs. Over 200,000 epochs is enough time for the land of origin to spawn countless creatures, and many originally desolate and remote areas have also been newly built with many cities. In one of the 36,000 Primal Chaos Prefecture, Jintan Primal Chaos Prefecture, in the main city, a tavern. The lord of this Primal Chaos Prefecture, Marquis Jintan, was enjoying the delicacies, and the entire tavern staff was serving with care. I never expected that simply following the conventions of the Duandong River lineage, just leaving a legacy as normal, would change the fate of the entire Duandong River lineage of 192 generations. Marquis Jintan still feels how lucky he was. Including himself, all 192 successors of the Duandong River and their closest relatives have been resurrected. The Duandong River lineage was always a single lineage, but now all the past generations live in the same era. Who could have thought that the 193rd Duandong River would be the great Lord Luo Feng, and it was the legacy I left him. Jintan felt extremely fortunate. The resurrected Duandong River of past generations, only the 3rd generation ancestor, and the 192nd Duandong River Jintan, received special favor from Luo Feng. Because strictly speaking, the legacy left by the 3rd generation ancestor greatly helped Luo Feng, and the 192nd Duandong River had the grace of passing on the teachings. Other Duandong River of past generations only received some cultivation resources, and they must forge their own path in the future. Of course, this some resources already excited the Duandong River of past generations. The 192nd Duandong River was granted a fief in a primal chaos prefecture. In today's land of origin, even a godly king needs multiple approvals to possibly obtain a fief. He utilized numerous resources to further step into the primal chaos realm. The third-generation ancestor, Jue God King, not only received a fief, but was also granted a cave mansion in the galaxy capital city, along with numerous valuable resources. The Duandong River lineage stops at Lord Luo Feng. Thus, there will be no 194th Duandong River. Juntan thought. He is the 192nd, Luo Feng is the 193rd, and there will be no more successors. Although the Duandong River of past generations are scattered across the land of origin, they are all part of the same lineage and do communicate, occasionally gathering. They consciously maintain this group identity. Over 200,000 epochs have passed, and among the 192 Duandong River, 5 have become godly kings, marking a formidable force on the land of origin. The infinite world, as the first world born in the endless primordial space, has countless clouds floating in its sky, each corresponding to a source world, seemingly innumerable. The ground, however, is endless black soil, and from its depths emerge small snakes, precisely the infinite great serpent clan. One by one, small snakes protrude their heads from the soil layer, peering through the void to witness the endless primordial space at every corner. That Lord Luo Feng is too domineering. As soon as anyone dares to devour a source world, he immediately strikes down with one blade. My sister couldn't help but sneakily consume a source world, thinking she could return to the infinite world before Lord Luo Feng approached. But she was still a distance of 1 or 2 world groups away, when she was struck dead by Lord Luo Feng's avatar with a single slash. Each of these small snakes is a descendant of the world-level primordial class Infinite Great Serpent Clan. To the Infinite Great Serpent Clan, the best resource is the source world origin. And the effect of consuming the source world origin is best for world-level primordial life. Thus, these world-level primordial infinite serpents are quite dissatisfied with Lord Luo Feng. Yet they can do nothing about it. As the leading tribe in the foremost camp, the Infinite Great Serpent Clan has always been proud, but in the face of Lord Luo Feng, they just want to hide far away, and even several world groups apart, they do not feel safe. I heard that the Inference Fire ancestor went to negotiate with Lord Luo Feng, and Lord Luo Feng slashed away most of the Inference Fire ancestor's true body, and now, no ancestor dares to negotiate. After all, he occupies the 34th layer of the abyss of destruction. His power far surpasses any ancestor. The greatest pride of these infinite serpents is their leader Infinite Snake Ancestor, and the over a dozen ancestor-level existences within the clan. But they understand that even if their ancestors join forces, they still fear they cannot rival Lord Luo Feng. Too strong. With one slash, he severely injured the undying Inference Fire ancestor. Who dares to jump around? Anyone who devours a source world is hunted by Lord Luo Feng, an undertaking that has lasted for over 20 million epochs. This has also caused some dissatisfaction among the ancestors, who secretly connect, yet still dare not start a collective war. After all, over 20 million epochs, to the ancestors, is just the time for one cultivation session they can still endure. If Luo Feng were still at the strength of occupying the 28th layer of the abyss of destruction, a group of powerful ancestors would have long since joined forces to trouble him. But now, occupying the 34th layer, the ancestors are also somewhat panicked. These ancestors are all unwilling to be the early birds, thinking they can still endure a bit longer. Let other ancestors test Luo Feng's power. Explore the real situation of Lord Luo Feng. As for over 20 million epochs, this amount of time, they still have patience. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Endless waves of blood ripple, and the mysterious land Blood Crane Territory has been renamed Galaxy Territory. In the solitary Galaxy Territory, there is only Luo Feng. He often cultivates here, with blade light sharply intertwining over the vast blood wave. With his current strength, practicing techniques here is terrifyingly powerful, and only in this mysterious land can he enjoy its full deployment. At this moment, on the island within the Galaxy Territory, Luo Feng sits cross-legged, draped in a black robe. This black robe is woven from the Power of Destruction world, and Crane Leader's power, primarily black, with some red line outlines. Crane Leader's power accounts for 30%, while the Power of Destruction world accounts for 70%. Crane Leader's power primarily has the characteristics of Undying and Shadow, more beneficial for movement technique and defense, while the Power of Destruction world is mainly destructive. Trying to comprehend the third primordial level Tao is indeed too difficult. Luo Feng sits cross-legged, a hint of helplessness between his brows. Even though his battle power is unparalleled in the endless primordial space, he still encounters setbacks. Continuously cultivating for over 20 million epochs does not tire Luo Feng. It feels like the time for a mortal to drink a cup of tea. Outside of life and death, I also have a slight talent for the path of matter. Luo Feng has chosen to focus on practicing the path of matter in the endless future years. An endless lifespan still needs a goal to strive for. I exchanged for the sharpest weapon, and while mastering the destruction world, I barely managed to defeat the fifth sculpture. Luo Feng pondered, to completely defeat the 7 sculptures, I estimate grasping 3 primordial level paths is needed. The difficulty, those ancestors pursuing the life core route face to pass the 7 layers of tests, is something Luo Feng does not fully understand. But for lords comprehending the primordial level Tao, it's estimated they need to master 3 Tao and require some external aid to hope for success. The third Tao, the path of matter. I carefully comprehend each branch, even sending down countless avatars, descending into source worlds containing the path of matter, traversing and comprehending. Luo Feng thought, over 20 million epochs, I have only finally comprehended all branches of the path of matter, and begun to attempt fusion, stepping into the second realm of Godly King. Integrating all branches of the path of matter into one forms the complete path of matter, entering the ultimate realm of Godly King. This is considered the first stage, and it is the easiest stage. After all, there is the path of matter within the source world origin as a reference. The second stage is fumbling in the dark until reaching half-step primordial. The third stage is from half-step primordial to primordial material path. Especially the third stage, the difficulty skyrockets by over 1 billion times compared to the first 2 stages. But after over 20 million epochs, he is still trapped in the first stage, having just reached the second realm of Godly King. No wonder Ming Huang, Jin, Wulan, each one of them finds it difficult to progress in comprehending the second primordial level Tao. I now understand. Luo Feng smiled slightly. He is not in a rush, he was mentally prepared for comprehending the third Tao. Take it slow. Luo Feng was well aware of the magical time. In endless ages, ancestors would slowly progress, as would lords. The progress seemed exceedingly slow, but what about in 2 billion epochs? Or 200 billion epochs? Or even longer? Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The land of origin, the first mysterious place of the cultivator camp, a mysterious place controlled by Yuan, which he also contributed to becoming the foundation of the cultivator camp. After endless years of cultivation, I have finally taken this step today. Yuan opened his eyes, feeling an inner joy. My primordial rule operation path's foundation is thoroughly established, and henceforth, I only need to comprehend more great Tao. Yuan felt very pleased. The primordial rule operation path, externally, was rule operation, but internally, it needed to constitute the origin. He had long conceived ideas, yet progress was difficult. The origin system of Luo Feng's primordial life and death Tao solved many of Yuan's problems, allowing Yuan smooth advancement, spending over 200 millennia to finally thoroughly comprehend his own origin system. The origin system integrated into the primordial rule operation path is considered perfection. From now on, only embellishments are needed. Sister Shoju, now in terms of strength, I fear I'm no weaker than you. Yuan thought. Compared to Shoju, he had always been inferior over the long years. Until today, even though Shoju excelled in frontal combat and Yuan in formation, Yuan was still confident to directly match. Everyone, I have broken through. Yuan immediately transmitted this thought to the other 7 lords. Broken through. Each lord, including Nai Jiyu, Wulan, Luo Feng, and Ming Huang, was overjoyed. They had all been waiting for Yuan's breakthrough. Once Yuan broke through, the power of the cultivator camp would indeed improve again. Luo Feng's strength was individual strength. Yuan's strength lay in formation, which could elevate the overall strength of all the lords working together. This made a more evident difference in the camp's battles. The Land of Origin, Council Hall. Around a round table made of dark realm crystal, 8 figures appeared, seated in their respective positions. Brother Yuan, with this breakthrough, what level of strength have you reached? Lord Moman asked, and the other lords also watched Yuan. I'm not very good at frontal combat, about the same level as Shoju and Starlight. Yuan replied with a smile. Starlight glanced at him, not good at combat, only equals me. The source of this content is ovalfire.net. Ha ha ha, Wulan, Jin, Ming Huang, Mo Man, Nai Jiyu, among others, laughed, yet they also felt envy. They had cultivated for so long, yet a qualitative breakthrough seemed a distant prospect. Luo Feng also smiled, watching this scene. Compared to other camps, the cultivator camp had the advantage of being much more united. I have cultivated the longest. Yuan gazed at his companions. When you all cultivate to a similar extent as I have, I'm sure you'll also break through. Hopefully, as you say, Yuan, Jin sighed, of the 8 lords, I'm second in age only to you, hoping that in the near future, I too can break through. Starlight laughed, let's discuss our next plan now. Since Brother Yuan has broken through, our cultivator camp's overall strength has improved, and we should expand territories to protect more source worlds. For the past 20,000 millennia, it has been Luo Feng traversing the endless primordial space, slaying source world devourers, and deterring the innate primordial life. But those ancestors can endure for a short time. Over time, they will erupt, Nai Jiyu stated. The best way is to outright occupy a large swath of territory, making those source worlds nominally our domain, and letting those innate primordial lives give up completely. Which territories do you think we should occupy? Wulan asked. Some good territories are mainly occupied by the innate primordial camp and Ice Peak camp, and taking them would make us their enemies. With Luo Feng here, combined with Yuan's formation commanding power, does the Ice Peak camp dare to contend with us? Jin remarked, our strength thoroughly suppresses them, and we should occupy more extensive territories. I believe our target this time should be to expand to at least 8,000 world groups. 8,000 world groups is quite troublesome, Mo Man frowned. After all, our 3,600 world groups are the densest territories, other territories' world groups are relatively sparse. I think expanding to 6,000 world groups is quite an achievement. 8,000 world groups impose substantial pressure, needing to occupy nearly half of the territory. Ming Huang also shook his head. The 3,600 world groups occupy about 1/10 of the territory primarily, because those world groups are densest there. World groups, however, represent nearly half the territory. We have too few lords, Starlight also stated. forcibly occupying would be hard to defend and could force the Ice Peak camp, an innate primordial camp, to ally. I think occupying 5,000 world groups is enough. Luo Feng suddenly spoke. The seven lords fixated on Luo Feng. With Luo Feng's current strength, his influence within the cultivator camp was naturally significant. 5,000 world groups. Jin couldn't help but comment, isn't that too few? Starlight watched this scenario unfold. It is a bit too few, Luo Feng nodded, hence, the innate primordial camp, Ice Peak camp, and other forces must compensate by handing over all their source worlds within their territories for us to govern. All source worlds. Yuan's eyes lit up upon hearing this. This was indeed his ultimate goal. The other lords also held their breath. I agree. Ming Huang's eyes lit up as she spoke. We have been too cautious before. With our current strength, we can completely occupy all source worlds in the endless primordial space. Luo Feng nodded. We are most concerned with the source worlds, but the innate primordial life forms care about all evolutionary resources, and the source worlds are just one of those resources. Wulan laughed heartily. Different innate primordial life forms have different needs, and some races don't need the source worlds that much. We could just focus on source worlds and abandon other resources. Many innate primordial life races would be willing. The hostility from innate primordial life forms will be significantly reduced. Yuan agreed. This is also a strategy to divide the enemies. If we expand our territory on a large scale and occupy everything including the source worlds, many ancestors might join forces. The innate primordial camp and Ice Peak camp, along with some weaker forces, might unite. If we only want the source worlds, those races that don't really need them wouldn't fight desperately. We lords focus mainly on enlightenment, Luo Feng stated. Those evolutionary resources are of little use to us. Making the entire world oppose us for those resources is pointless. After all, there are still some undying existences. If we push too hard, the undying existences might fight to the death with the cultivator camp, which would be unbearable for us. Luo Feng, do you think expanding to over 5,000 world groups is to occupy this region? Starlight Lord waved his hand, and a space-time map of the endless primordial space appeared in mid-air, delineating a region comparable to the cultivator camp's territory. Luo Feng nodded. This region has 1,600 world groups, and its world group density is only second to our current territory. Once occupied, we'll have 2/10 of the valuable territory in the endless primordial space. Considering that future generations in the cultivator camp will need some resources, 2/10 of the territory is sufficient. The present lords also nodded. This region can barely accommodate a space-time network. Starlight Lord looked at it and nodded slightly, but the difficulty is considerably higher than our current cultivator camp. The territories are comparable. One area has 3,600 world groups, and another area has 1,600 world groups with large barren dark areas, making the spacetime network more difficult to establish. We must occupy this region. Yuan spoke. We need to sufficiently threaten the innate primordial camp. If they don't agree to hand over all source worlds, we'll continue expanding our territory. Choose one of the two. Starlight Lord smiled and nodded. They are likely to prefer handing over all source worlds, though the Infinite Great Serpent clan will fiercely resist. For the Infinite Great Serpent clan, the source world origin is what they need the most. Mo-Man also laughed. As long as the innate primordial species is internally divided, only the Infinite Great Serpent clan will not make a big impact. First occupy the 1,600 world groups to intimidate the innate primordial camp and all other forces. Then proceed to negotiate, using non-expansion as a condition to exchange for all source worlds. Yuan looked at the other lords. Does everyone agree? Agree. Agree. Jin, Wulan, Ming Huang, Nai Jiyu, Starlight Lord, Mo Man, and Luo Feng all agreed. Absolutely occupy 2/10 of the territory, and then command all source worlds within the remaining territory. All 8 lords thought it was sufficient. Starlight Lord, please perfect the plan. Yuan looked at Starlight Lord. Once the detailed plan is confirmed, we'll start the operation. All right. Starlight Lord nodded. He would consider countless future possibilities and devise a plan with the highest chance of success. Let's start by rehearsing the cooperative techniques. Yuan looked at the 7 lords. I need to create several formations that suit everyone. Ha ha, I've long wanted to see how strong Yuan and Luo Feng have become now. Wulan laughed. Then let's begin. Jin was also quite expectant. The 8 lords all used only a weak avatar, 1/10 energy reserve, to rehearse their cooperation in the Land of Origin. The Land of Origin, as the mysterious land, couldn't withstand the full force training of the 8 lords' main avatars. This rehearsal also astonished the other 7 lords with Luo Feng's strength. Yuan's formation also reached an incredible level, more perfect than before, maximizing collective strength. This made the lords very confident. The 20th layer of the Abyss of Destruction. Ice Peak Ancestor, who had turned into a towering ice mountain, sensed Yuan suddenly entering his layer, causing Ice Peak Ancestor to naturally open his eyes and look at the familiar figure with curiosity. Brother Yuan. Ice Peak Ancestor looked at Yuan. Was Yuan going to challenge him? Just passing by. Yuan smiled slightly and then continued to advance into deeper spaces. Ice Peak Ancestor was a bit stunned. What's going on? Both the Infinite Snake Ancestor, on the 21st layer, and the Demon Ruins on the 22nd layer saw Yuan rush past, entering deeper layers. This made some ancestors in the endless primordial space begin to notice Yuan. The 23rd to 25th layers were ownerless. Once you enter, you are sure to face attacks from world envoys. Boom. Yuan walked leisurely, with formations enveloping all directions, rendering the attacks of the world envoys unable to touch Yuan. Those world envoys were lost within the formations, and their attacks deviated in direction. Yuan very calmly passed through the 23rd layer and the 24th layer, finally leaving a mark on the shadow of origin at the 25th layer. What? How is this possible? All factions were dumbfounded. The power dynamic in the Abyss of Destruction was that Luo Feng occupied the unique 34th layer, Shoju and Starlight Lord respectively occupied the 27th and 26th layers belonging to the second tier, followed by Demon Ruins, Infinite Snake Ancestor, Ice Peak, and Yuan in the 22nd layer and some weaker layers. But now Yuan easily occupied the 25th layer. Judging by the battle scene, Yuan clearly wasn't giving his best. In the endless primordial space, among the top 4 in direct strength, the Cultivator camp occupies 3 positions. Mastering the primordial level Dao, is the advantage really that great? Countless ancestors felt uneasy in their hearts. The endless primordial space has over 200 ancestors, yet only 8 lords. However, once these 8 lords achieved their position, they became undying, and their direct power was so formidable. We ancestors have also fallen throughout history. Those who survive to this day are already quite formidable. But even the weakest of these 8 lords are among the top 20 in strength. The most update N0 vels are published on noveltimesfire.net. Although in terms of numbers and overall strength, all innate primordial ancestors united are stronger, after all, there are over 200 ancestors. But individually, the gap is considerable. It seems that there are the Cultivator camp, innate primordial camp, Ice Peak camp, and some weaker forces, but in terms of life, there are essentially 2 categories. One category is the creatures from the source world who have cultivated to lords. Only 8. The other category is the ancestors achieved by innate primordial life, totaling over 200. There are 22 who are undying and undying. Yuan's easy conquest of the 25th layer of the abyss of destruction indeed stimulated all the ancestors. 27th layer. Shoju watched the familiar figure approach her layer. Big sister Shoju. Yuan smiled at Shoju. Did not expect the little guy from back then to catch up to me now. Shoju looked at Yuan. Come, let me see your techniques. Yuan nodded. A great battle erupted, as numerous ancestors and lords watched this battle from afar. Shoju still possessed a might that made all sides' hearts tremble, while Yuan's formation seemed like the heavens and earth, enduring all attacks and counterattacking. This confrontation ultimately ended in a draw. Shoju could not threaten Yuan, who was protected by layers of formation. Yuan's attacks also could not harm Shoju. Shoju looked at Yuan and transmitted, "Did Luo Feng tell you about the destruction fruit?" Yuan was startled. He knew about the destruction fruit from the intelligence Luo Feng provided, but was not aware of Shoju's former proposal. "I'll ask Luo Feng." Yuan responded. Soon after contacting Luo Feng privately, Yuan understood the entire situation. "Big sister Shoju, have you agreed to fully join the cultivator camp?" Yuan transmitted, "Even if it means being at odds with the Ice Peak ancestor, and all innate primordial life ancestors, will you still stand with us forever?" "I didn't say I would join you," I said. "I would fully support you." Shoju transmitted, "I can help you deal with the innate primordial camp, even if you oppose the Ice Peak camp. I can remain neutral." Yuan gently shook his head. He understood Shoju too well. Shoju, at her core, is very cold-hearted and can be completely ruthless except towards the Ice Mountain. Luo Feng said he has already exchanged the destruction fruit for treasures, so there's none left. Yuan said, and then turned to leave. Exchanged for treasures, none left. Shoju was taken aback. In the Mountain of Destruction, she could only defeat 2 statues. The third statue completely overwhelmed her, leaving her without any hope of victory. Kafu's destruction fruit had long been exchanged for battle armor, and Luo Feng's was her only hope to obtain a destruction fruit. With his strength in occupying the 34th layer, even if all destruction fruits are exchanged for treasures, the obtained treasures could greatly boost his strength, possibly allowing him to defeat another statue and obtain another fruit. Shoju thought. In Shoju's view, the possibility that Luo Feng possesses at least one destruction fruit is very high. Land of Origin. The 8 lords gathered Avatar for the main battle. Shoju mentioned to Luo Feng, and now to me, about the destruction fruit. Yuan was somewhat worried, looking at Starlight. From what I know of her, she clearly desires this destruction fruit very much. Brother Yuan, don't let emotions cloud your judgment. Starlight shook his head. Shoju's nature is very cold and ruthless. Even if she gets one destruction fruit, she will still desire a second one. She won't serve us forever, just for one fruit. Luo Feng listened on the side. After mastering the destruction world, he indeed defeated the 5th statue, and can still exchange for one destruction fruit. But Luo Feng does not trust Shoju, nor does he want to cultivate a competitor. For this operation, we need to face many ancestors, a group of undying and undying beings. As for Shoju, don't think too much. Starlight said. Everyone present nodded. They were all aware of the detailed action plan. Yuan smiled, then let's set off and first take the 1,600 world group. Luo Feng, when the time comes, be ruthless, just as you did when you slashed me. Wulan laughed. previously split in two during a spar to feel Luo Feng's blade of all things can be cut. Rest assured. Killing intent brewed in Luo Feng's heart. When sparring with the lords, he had been very restrained. After mastering Destruction World, he had not yet fought a full-strength opponent. This time, he should be able to fight to his heart's content. This time will be very interesting. Mo Man smiled. I can't wait. Jin's battle intent surged. Ming Huang smiled slightly, while Nai Gu's eyes were filled with bloodlust. Starlight Lord controlled time and space, carrying Yuan, Wulan, Ming Huang, Nai Jiu, Starlight, Mo Man, and Luo Feng on their mission together. The 8 lords left the land of origin together, and headed straight to their target territory. This video will end here.